So I recently felt that nostalgic urge to dig through some old hard drives and look at some of my old projects. And I found the whole reason I got into Blender and 3D modeling in the first place, which is game development. So back in 2015, I really wanted to make video games. But as a kid with no money, I had to do some research on how to make 3D models for free. And soon after, I discovered Blender and the rest is history. It took some time, but I started making games in the Unity game engine, which is the footage you're seeing here. It was supposed to be this open world fantasy game that was sort of Lord of the Rings inspired. It had some nice colorful worlds that you could explore, but ultimately the project was just too ambitious. The world size was too big and the scope was too big, so I ran out of motivation to work on the game, and it is left in this unfinished state to this very day. It's been about 5 years or so since I've moved on to other projects, but the itch to make games hasn't left me. There's just something about making a project that you can interact with that's so interesting in a way that video or photo doesn't really capture. And as much as I love those mediums, I wanted to try something new and give game development another shot. I knew that I have to scale back the idea to make a project that I could actually complete, so I wanted to pick a scene that would be limited right out of the box, so I wouldn't be tempted to keep adding more and more scale to it. I like lighthouses a lot, and I already had a model from a previous project where I made a render of a lighthouse during this storm. So the great thing about lighthouses is it's an interesting location, and it's a great place for a self-contained level. So now I had my setting and needed some gameplay. 2 games that I really liked came to mind while I was considering options, and the first thing that I thought of was this level from Dishonored 2. The basic concept is super interesting. You have this mirror device that can see into the past, and you can jump back and forth in time. And in the past, this mansion is really beautiful and well maintained, but in its present state, it's really dilapidated and crusty and old. And it's just a really interesting idea. The second game is Portal, and Portal 2. The portals add an interesting element, and you have to think outside the box and use the space around you in interesting ways. So both of these games, I think they make really good use of a relatively small space. And since the whole point of the game is to make a small level interesting, I wanted to take that concept and do something similar with it. I also want to keep things simple from a feature standpoint, at least for now. So none of those fancy hands, pretty limited animation, simple menus, stuff like that. So now what I needed was something to build the game in. And I didn't really want to go back to Unity. I had briefly messed around with an engine called Godot a while ago, so I decided on that. The cherry on top is that Godot is free and open source, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm absolutely a nerd about open source software, like Blender, GIMP, Audacity, etc. So I had to work to make my model that I lazily repurposed a little more game friendly. So I had to make sure you could actually walk inside of it, updated some of the textures, and right now the game is still definitely early on, and I'm mostly just blocking things out and trying it out and making sure it works, because I don't want to spend a lot of time making things look pretty and then I decide that the gameplay should go in a different direction, and then I have to backtrack and do a whole bunch of work all over again. So for now, I just want it to function for the proof of concept and then make it nicer later. So for my game, I wanted the gameplay to have the main lighthouse, and then you have a opposite lighthouse. It's kind of like a mirror, and you can switch between them whenever you want. And the differences between the two, you have to keep track of those because that's the puzzle of it. And on a technical level, the lighthouse is just being hidden. So the mesh is attached to this code that hides it, and then it unhides the other mesh. But I'm not much of a coder, so it took some time to learn Godot's GD script language. But eventually, I ended up with a prototype that would hide one mesh and show another. And it also changed the collision from that first shape to the second one. And it actually works pretty well, so I'm happy with it as a proof of concept. I have some simple gameplay here. You can see the house is a little ugly, but it gets the job done. So here we have a painting or a picture of my dog Henry, and we have a door that you can't go in, so it's blocked off. But this room is accessible. You can go in here, and then the lighthouse, it's just there. I haven't really done anything with that yet, but you can see if we switch it, then Henry is like a mirrored version of himself. He's backwards, and you'll notice the door is now gone. So we can go in this room and then switch back to where we weren't able to access before, and it's different in the other dimension. So the test build has some functionality for an interesting project, and I have some ideas for where I want to go with it, but I won't spoil the specifics of what I have planned. I will make a follow-up to this video, and depending on how long it takes, this might be a more regular series, but I do appreciate you watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Huge shout out to Flowerhead for making the awesome music that I put in this video. Definitely go check out their YouTube channel. Thanks again so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.